All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Just BCA podcast. I am your host, Brandon Corey Alexander, aka Just BCA, and my guest today for a round two is none other than the guy who I'm convinced is Australian, Joey Ozbourne. What up, Joey?
G'day, mate. How you doing?
I mean, your name is Joey, which is a baby kangaroo, and your last name is Ozbourne. So
it is.
Why would you
sleep in a pouch?
Why would you not be Australian?
It's a conspiracy theory, sir.
How often do you get confused? How often do you get confused for an Australian?
More times than I have digits on my entire body, including my toes. At least once a week, at least, I reckon. More than that when I wrestled, like all the time. So yeah.
I mean, to the uncultured, the British accent and the Australian accent sound similar, but I guess if you've been around it enough, you know it's not the same at all. Not the same.
Well, the reason for that is because ages and ages and ages ago, they used to send British criminals over to Australia. They would deport them to Australia as a punishment, and then I think that is how England ended up colonizing Australia, or the British Empire ended up colonizing that country, I believe. So, yeah, there's a history lesson for you.
I've always wanted to go to Australia, but I don't feel like dying, so.
I really want to go there as well, but it'd take a minute and a half to get there, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, it definitely would. All right, so
probably fly to LA and then Singapore and then to Australia.
Oh yeah, definitely want to go to Singapore. I've always wanted to go to Japan too. Japan, Alaska, Australia, somewhere in Germany. It doesn't really matter. Probably hamburger, because I'm convinced that that's where the hamburger was created, but I was told that it's not by an actual German.
Hamburger for a hot dog.
Pretty much. Actually, they make hamburgers that are like hot dogs there. It's beef patties that are made cylindrical and put in a loaf of bread.
Oh, you can get those from like 7-Eleven and shit.
Yeah. The hot burger ham dog or something like that.
Yeah, it's filled with cheese.
That's how I'm going to start paying wrestlers, man. I'm going to be like, you want a ham dog or a hot burger? And a handshake.
Or if you want, we can do a crisp high five, Dupinder.
That's pretty much all you get these days. Budget's tight, man. Sorry. We didn't make gate.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure we'll get onto that in a minute.
Yeah. So anyways, speaking of getting onto it, man, the last time we spoke, you were still active in the wrestling community and you were working on a feud for our USWA show against Stunt Marshall, where you were going in as presumably the baby face, and you were fixing to take on a heel, or so we thought. And we were building something very strong towards you taking the Elite Championship and kind of challenging for it, potentially taking it off of Stunt Marshall. Tell us what happened during that show for those who haven't seen it.
So Mr. Marshall, who is all about hate, ended up being probably the most over guy in that building, dare I say, more than John Davis. It's you guys said to me beforehand that I would end up, working as a babyface because they hate him, and I think I said something to you along the lines of, let's just wait and see what happens, shall we? And you said, okay.
Well, there was I remember having a discussion with you. There was way more that went into it. We were talking about taking sound bites from each of your podcasts and like playing audio and showing like visuals and stuff to kind of build the heat. Yeah. And we were gonna do something. And then you're standing in the middle of the ring. I was standing center outside. And then before his music even hit, the crowd was chanting hate, hate, hate. And then when his music did hit, it was the loudest pop that I've heard in probably a decade. And you just gave me that look like, we're on the fly, kid. We're on the fly, kid.
Because he was meant to be in the ring, and he was meant to. I remember that now. He was going to get in the ring, and you were going to give me the microphone, and I was going to quote his podcast, or we were going to play a sound clip from him when he said to you that the whole hate gimmick started from him being put on the back burner and stuff like that. And I was going to say something along the lines of, if you want to talk about being put on the back burner, you know, try having done this job for 15 years and seeing people who you came up with in the business, you know, walk out onto the stage at WrestleMania and like walk down to that ring when, you know, some of the people I know damn well, which is going to sound arrogant, I know damn well they can't lace my boots even on the best day and even on my worst day, which is a very arrogant thing to say, but I'm sure we'll get into that later on.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole concept of the promo was going to be, you know, I'm going to give you the opportunity right now to hand that championship to the referee, because I hate it when people call it a belt. A belt holds up your trousers or your pants. A championship is something that you fight for. And I was going to say, you know, I'm going to give you one opportunity right now to hand that championship to the referee. You can forfeit the match and he will award it to me. Otherwise, you're going to incur 15 years of being put on the back burner of someone who, quite honestly, is the best athlete that the WWE never signed, which I was then going to use as a gimmick moving forward in promos. You know, I was going to be saying stuff like, I'm the greatest wrestler that the WWE have never signed or even heard of.
Right. Yeah,
we try and use that to generate some kind of buzz.
Yeah, we discussed all of that. Like, we had this big plan going forward, and then just in a matter of the fans' opinion, the fans decided that match. Like, you got in the ring and the music hit. It's like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah, I remember when he was walking around the ring and you like, I guess a quarter of the way extended your arm with a microphone in it. And I just walked over to you and I just said, we don't need it.
Yep. I was about to walk up to you.
The whole plan of the promo was to essentially make Stunt a babyface for the entirety of the match to make life easier and stuff like that. But, you know, based on the fun I had with John, and then you with the what's the word I'm looking for, with the recurring fan base, like I noticed on both shows that you get the same people turning up all the time, which, you know, is a testament to your company that, you know, you're putting on entertaining shows that people want to come back to. So the fact that you have people coming back, you know, is a feather in your cap, and it also obviously makes all the boys and girls' jobs easier who are there, you know, on a more often than not basis, because people are going to know who they are. They're going to know whether they like them or whether they hate them. And,
exactly.
You know,
I love that.
That's part of what makes a good wrestling company. Me too. This is part of what makes a good wrestling company, because it then eliminates probably 50% of the workload that you have to do in a ring. You know, a lot of people have to come out and make it obvious as to whether they're a blue eye or a villain, and then have to try and get the crowd behind them according to either good or bad. And then after that, they have to do the match. And some people, you know, put too much effort, I think, into trying to elicit that kind of response from a crowd. And, you know, from my experience, if people don't want to cheer for me and I'm meant to be a babyface, then in my head, I'm kind of like, well, fuck it.
I'm a heel now.
I'm just gonna wrestle like a heel, and hopefully the guy who's meant to be a heel can, you know, out heel me and, you know, generate some sympathy for me, which, you know, more often than not, it works. And I think the only criticism I've ever had of being a babyface is I get told that I'm too, I guess, grumpy, like I don't smile enough.
No, you don't. You don't.
But
the two things I take from that match, though, the way that it came about was like 9 times out of 10, when you're developing a story, you have this vision in your mind. And sometimes the vision doesn't always go as it's planned, because sometimes the fans just organically get behind somebody, whether they're a good guy or a bad guy or not. They like to see it. And I had a discussion with somebody recently about Stunt Marshall being popped for that show. You know, even though he still kind of was the heel, he's relatable to a sense that the fans could get behind him because of the whole hate thing. I hate my job. I hate this. I hate that. I hate, you know, so much negativity floating around. They're like, oh, I like this guy. I relate to that. But the organic part about it that made it so much different for me was I couldn't tell whether the fans disliked you because you were going against their guy, or if they disliked you because you were so anti-American the first time that you came out. You know, because you did the thing with John, and you're like, yeah, boo, blah, 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 Union Jack this and whatever.
Yeah.
And so like you couldn't tell, and that's where the line got blurred. And that's what I love about professional wrestling is the fact that like sometimes those moments just naturally happen and you have to go with it because you can't change it because then the fans won't react properly. I mean, that match was one of the hottest matches that from bell to bell, literally the boos for you, the chants for him, the absolute uproar of a pop that he got once his music did hit, him coming out, and just the facial reactions that you and I shared, because I was probably 7 feet away from the ring fixing to extend my hand out to you, and you're like, you kind of gave me that look.
You
like
were still in the ring.
Yeah, I had just hopped out.
Still in the ring.
Yep.
No, you were still in the ring in the corner.
Was I?
And like, I looked at you. Yeah, you were.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Because you needed to introduce him, and I remember you looking at me, and I looked at you when you went to give me the microphone. I'm like, we don't need it.
Yep, you're right.
Over as fuck as a baby face. We don't need a dude. It's just going to waste time that other guys can then end up, utilizing in their own match.
Right.
Let's save time for the rest of the boys. Let's not be greedy here.
Right, and at that point, you had to make a professional decision, and it turned out to be one of the best ones that you could have made.
I mean, sometimes making decisions like that on the fly, I think work a lot better. I think there's a lot of wrestlers who worry about going from A through to Z, and it shows in their match because it doesn't look organic and it looks very stop-startish or very stutterish, I guess would be a better word to use. And it's kind of like the light bulb hasn't gone off for them yet, where they realize, oh, this is a really easy thing to do. I don't need to worry so much about, what the crowd are going to say or how they're going to react, or if my moves are going to look crisp and if it's going to look bad, or, any kind of parameter. For the simple fact of the matter is that if you botch a spot or if you botch a sequence, the only people who are going to know that are the two people in the ring, potentially the referee, and possibly, anyone who's watching behind the curtain, just to see if anyone is doing the same stuff in their matches that they're planning on doing in theirs if they're later on in the card. And like a lot of young wrestlers, they worry about getting all their shit in, making sure it looks crisp as, crisp as all hell, which that's fair enough. I think everything should look crisp unless it's towards the end of the match and it's been like a 20-minute match. Then if something looks sloppy, then it makes it look more real, in my opinion. Everyone knows that this job is more bent than Christmas. But like if you're in a 30-minute match and you're at like the 25-minute mark and you're still hitting all your shit and it looks really, really crisp, then kudos to you, props to you, good for you. But if you're a little bit greener and your stuff looks sloppy, good. It makes it look more real.
It does.
This kid's been wrestling for 25 minutes. He's absolutely exhausted. It looks like he just brained this guy and dropped him on his head.
That's true. I actually agree with you in the sense that like sometimes wrestling that looks too crisp, too perfect, it feels rehearsed. And so like when there's a few mess ups or something like that, or even a botch or something like that, as long as nobody gets injured, you know what I'm saying? It blurs that line for the fans. Like, yo, these guys are exhausted. Like, if you put yourself in my shoes, like if you were to fight a guy on the streets for like 25 minutes, which usually doesn't happen, 2 minutes, it's over. You're probably going to be winded. You're not going to throw a punch as heavy as you would 25 minutes ago. You got to introduce a little bit of realism. And sometimes having a guy in there who's green like that can make the difference. Like a good match isn't always a perfect match. People have to remember that.
I agree. And listen, I'll be honest. If I had to fight for 25 minutes on the street, I'd be calling 911 and not for the guy that I just fought for me, because I'd be having a goddamn fucking heart attack. I'd be going into cardiac arrest, man.
Hell yeah. So after that match, of course, you apparently didn't win. But
I did not.
Like I said,
wrestling gods didn't favor that to happen for me on this occasion.
Unfortunately.
Even though I pushed for it.
Yep. Yeah, we were pushing. We without blurring the lines too much for everybody who's not like a part of the situation. Like we there was a lot of stuff that went on backstage, but what was more important was the stuff that was going on front stage, the fans' reaction and stuff like that. But getting into it, you had developed a little bit of a little local name here in Jacksonville. You'd been back for the first time in a while, and you got a call to do a show at a certain biker clubhouse. And
this is where we segue to the dropping on the head comment.
This is where we get into the part where we talk about why you're not around anymore. Like people have asked me several times, like, well, when's Joey coming back? And I'm like, unfortunately, he's not. That's not my decision to make for him. That is a decision that you had to make for yourself. So let's talk about that for a little bit. Like what happened leading up to that? Like, how'd you get that call? Who made the call? Like, how'd you figure out who you were going to fight against? Like, what transpired during that match that led to the situation that you're in now?
Okay, well, first off, to the people, if they're listening, that had asked you when I'm going to be back, thank you very much. I appreciate that, because it shows that I clearly made some kind of an impact, whether it be positive or negative, upon you in such a way that you wanted me to come back to USWA. So thank you. That's very heartfelt and appreciated. In regards to the show, to the biker show, I believe it was for a charity, and Stunt was in charge of organising the card and putting it together and everything like that. And I know you guys supplied the ring, which I don't think I got the chance to tell you was such a nice ring to bump in. I know it's an older ring, but it is such a nice ring to bump in. It's so damn comfy. So he was going to have me wrestle Odinson, who, if no one knows who Odinson is, he is about 6'3", and I reckon he's probably about 6'5", and he's probably like, what would you say, a good 260?
I'd say 275 during bulking season. Right now, he's probably like 260, 265, give or take. He's cut. He's cut right now.
Yeah, for sure. He's a big boy. So we go through the match backstage. We put it all together, and I have the same mentality that I did when I wrestled Stunt and when I wrestled John. I'm thinking, shit, I'm getting really lucky coming up to Jacksonville and getting to work with these people who I'm getting to work, because we're putting on some right bangers, like really entertaining matches, crowd are enjoying it. Both of us are coming out of there, safe and sound with no injuries, nothing that we need to worry about and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'm really excited for the match. It's a biker show as well. And obviously these are like hardcore bikers, which, if you know what we mean by a hardcore biker, we need not say more. And if you don't know what we mean by a hardcore biker, then we're not going to say more either, because that could come across as profiling and being discriminatory. So we won't, but we're going to stick with it. It was a hardcore biker show, to the point where we were told numerous times, and it was stressed, that we weren't to go out of the ring and interact with the bikers. We weren't to talk any kind of shit to them. We could try and G them up to get them on our side if we wanted to, but if you were a heel, very strictly, no chatting shit to the bikers, no saying anything that can be construed as offensive or rude in any way, shape or form. So even to the point where actually my ring jacket, the patch on the back of it, could be misconstrued as a biker jacket. So I don't think I wore that out to the ring just because I didn't want to piss anyone off. So I got out to the ring, I'm chatting shit, I'm running my mouth. I think I made reference to being like the biggest, most jacked guy there, just like shouting off and stuff like that. And then Odinson comes out, who, he looks like Thor. He legit looks like he just got, transported through the Bifrost from Asgard. He comes out, everyone's like, oh, this guy's going to fuck you up. And lo and behold, that guy did fuck me up. Completely unintentional, completely accidental as well. It's wrestling. It's something that happens. We did the start of the match, which included, a lot of chicken shit antics from me. Eventually, he caught me, gave me a couple of real nice chops, which, Jesus Christ, I've never been chopped so hard in my life. And then I believe the finish of his shine was a belly to back suplex, which, for people that don't know, you put your opponent's left arm over the back of your neck, kind of in a draped motion. And then you lift them up and you fall to your back. Now, I had said to Odinson before the match, I said, just so you know, I jump and I can make myself really light. So when you pick me up for the back suplex, you do not need to launch me. It was the only, no, not the only, actually. There were more parts of the match that, you know, I was kind of thinking, well, I might get hurt here. But then, you know, Odinson's been doing the job for absolutely ages, so I trusted him. Right. Really didn't have any concern whatsoever. We get to the spot in the match, and he picks me up, and I jump. And before we even get to the top of the move, my head is already going backwards over his shoulder. And it's at that point where I knew that I fucked up. I knew it was going to hurt when I landed, and I kind of I tucked my neck as much as I could, and I tried to get my hand up behind my head. I honestly don't remember. And we basically came down, and my knee went all the way into my mouth. I was literally folded up like an accordion, as Jim Ross would say.
Oh yeah, you got tacoed, my friend. You got tacoed really bad.
Oh yeah. I got folded in half. And I remember I just heard several loud crunches, and he pinned me and he said, "Are you okay?" And I remember gasping, "No, I'm fucked," because I couldn't breathe. It knocked the wind out of me. I remember saying to him, "No, I'm fucked. Just pin me." And he went, "What?" And I said, "Just pin me." So he pinned me, and obviously everyone was kind of really, really confused and shit like that. And I think I remember looking at you and Ella, and you were both really looking kind of concerned.
Yeah.
And the referee, and was it you as well that came into the ring to help me get up?
I came out to ringside. I didn't want to get in the ring, and I didn't want to touch you because I've had neck injuries and concussions and stuff before. So I know the first thing you do is you don't move the person unless they start to move on their own, and you aren't moving, man. The face that you saw was legit concerned, because I as soon as I didn't just see it, but I heard it. Being that far away from you, I was watching it, and as soon as the back body drop or whatever move it was happened, I was kind of looking away, but then I looked just in time to see it. And as soon as it happened, midair, you're probably having the same thought, but midair, I'm he's fucked. And as soon as you came down, I knew it. As soon as you came down and I heard that noise, I was I've heard that familiar noise before. And first thing I thought was he just broke his neck. He's done. And
I thought I broke my neck. I honestly thought in that moment I'd broken it.
Yeah, and I think in a moment, 20 seconds worth of concern, I started cussing at Odinson. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? I was getting really angry because I was like, yo, this isn't how this was supposed to go. And so I made my way off the little stage area and kind of over to ringside, and it was like, yo, is he good? Is he good? Is he good? And that's when they started to pick you up and put your arms around the shoulders, and you started walking away. And I looked at you, and I remember asking you, I'm like, are you okay? And all you did was smile at me. You had the lights were on, but nobody was home. You didn't even acknowledge me. And shortly after that, you were in the back, and you were being tended to, and you were sitting in a chair with ice and everything. And I walked up to you, and I got down on my knee, and I was like, yo, or do you know where you are? And you're you said something, and you're I think I'm at a clubhouse. And I'm like, yeah, all right. Well, at least he's conscious. I'll let this be taken care of. I got to get back out there. I just want to make sure you're still alive and can walk on your own, because it was a scary moment, man. I would legit, I've seen a lot of wrestling, and there's a lot of, oh my God moments, but at that I still haven't seen the footage because they haven't given it to us for the rightful reason. But going back and I think somebody sent it to me on a cell phone clip, and I was told to delete it and stuff like that. But I watched it back, and I'm like, yo, that could have gone so much worse. If you looking at it, if you hadn't tucked your neck, if you hadn't tucked your chin as far as you could, that was it. You were over.
I'd be in a wheelchair right now.
For sure. And at first I wanted to blame Odinson, but then I realized, you know, like I wanted to be like, yo, he doesn't realize his own strength. He's an asshole. He should have done this. But like realistically in the wrestling business, it takes two to tango. You trusted him. He knows what he's doing. It was just one of those fluke accidents. And up to that point, I had no idea the whole conversation took place between you and him. It was like, don't launch me. I can jump. I can make myself light, because people see you in this video clip and they can see like you're a well-fit guy, but you're not 6'5". You know, you're not 275 pounds, but you are able to make yourself in an athletically gifted way very light by doing what you need to do. And in that situation, like, just wound up being super scary. So let's talk about, like, what do you remember, if anything at all? Like, where were you? Like, where was your brain at the time? Like, I know you're probably concerned about the sounds you heard, but like, do you remember going to the back at all?
The only thing I remember being picked up and dropped. The next thing I remember is spitting a mouthful of blood out,
right,
that had like fragments of my teeth in. I don't remember being helped to the back. I remember the next thing I remember is being sat in the back, and I'm looking at a pair of like black boots and a pair of black pants. And I said, can someone go and get my girl for me? And she said, I'm right here.
Yeah.
And I remember looking up and I just like smiled and I'm like, oh, hey, how are you?
Yeah, I was there for that.
How are you? Yeah, I'm like, I'm good. She's like, no, you're not. I'm like, no, I'm not. I remember everything after that, going back to her brother's house afterwards, and then she was helping me get my gear off, and I don't remember any of that, but supposedly during that process I said to her, you know, I'm done. I've had enough now. Like, I'm fed up again hurt. I'm done.
That was the moment.
Yeah, and like, what I will say is, immediately as soon as we got behind the curtain, and for about probably a month afterwards, until I essentially gave him the green light, Odinson checked on me every single day. Like, he helped me get changed as much as I could. Well, no, he helped me pack my bag after the match.
Yeah.
And he messaged me the following morning. I think he messaged me that night, actually, to tell me to let him know that I was okay and what was going on.
Yeah.
Because I guess he assumed that I was going to the hospital, which I didn't do. That was like concussion number 15 or 16. So I've had enough of them to know when I've got a concussion, and I've had enough of them to know when it's a bad one, or when it's just, if you can call a concussion a good one, when it's a good one. But like, honestly, the thing I was really pissed off about is my brother-in-law's wife was going to cook for us the following night, because my birthday was the week before.
Right.
And we went up there because obviously we had the show and we were going to stay at his house. And she said, you know, what do you want for your birthday dinner? Like, we'll cook you something.
Bangers and mash.
No, I was like steak, potato wedges, like homemade deep fried potato wedges, and mushrooms. And the thing I was most pissed off about the whole fucking like scenario and shit that went down is I couldn't eat my steak properly, man. I couldn't taste it properly because my tongue was my tongue was so swollen from being bitten in like 3 different places when I came down that like it was a process to eat it. I was so pissed off about that. More than getting like knocked the fuck out, I was more pissed off about not being able to taste my steak.
So two things that I take from that is, like, first of all, shout out to Odinson for being an absolute pro. I mean, the dude, like, just the concern on his face was just as legit as the rest of ours. Like, he was so scared in the moment for a guy that's 6'5", 275, whatever it is. Like, he was an absolute teddy bear. I
vaguely remember him freaking out, like, at ringside. I remember him being, like, legit petrified. Like, what the fuck have I just done? I've killed someone. Yeah,
your first reaction, I don't know if you remember, but your first reaction was, fuck, I didn't finish the match, because you and I had a conversation, like, no matter how hurt you are, you always go to the end, right? But like, you had to call an audible. But like, he was freaking out because he thought he just legit killed somebody or paralyzed somebody, and like, he was scared. And the fact that he actually like checked on you and stuff like that. Like we all did, but like him being the guy who's the precursor to all this, like the fact that he checked on you is absolutely, that's the biggest pro move you could do in this business, because you want to take care of people that you're in the ring with. That's your brother.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're portraying a character where you hate each other.
Checking on me as well.
Yeah. And I checked on you too, but I remember our conversations were very, very brief, because like first of all, I didn't want to bother you because I know what having a concussion and headaches and stuff were like, but also I know what tooth pain feels like. I've had a couple knocked out myself. So like, you don't necessarily want to keep moving your head to look at your phone, and you just want to be left alone. So, but yeah, like some people were blaming you having teeth fragments on your gear and in the ring and stuff like that, on the fact that like he hit you pretty hard. But truth be told, you did that one to yourself, man. Your knee to the face. You knocked out your own teeth. Which teeth was it? Didn't you say it was like a molar or incisor or something that got knocked out? Like one of your main boys?
I chipped 2 molars on the same side, top and bottom, and a little fragment of my lower teeth at the front, like broke off. But like, I remember someone came up to me and they were like, I don't know if you want these, but here you go. And they just put in my palm, like the fragments of my teeth. And I'm like, no, I don't fucking want those. I'm just like, discarded of them. But like, I remember that. But no, he was like super professional, like really, really professional. Like, I can't say enough about him doing that, because I got a concussion about 3 weeks prior to that. And the guy that gave it to me gave me like a half-assed checkup when I got to the back, scuttled out of the building at the end of the show, didn't check on me after that whatsoever. And like, I was really, really pissed off about that, like really pissed off. Like, I'm not going to mention names. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but I was genuinely pissed about it, because, this is a business where you're meant to look after each other, make sure one another's okay. And you just be like, oh, you okay, man? All right, cool, I'm done. And then they run off, and then they never message you afterwards, like, hey, how are you feeling? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Especially when during a match I said, I am not the fuck out. I have a concussion. Those are my exact words. Well, I am not the fuck out. I have a concussion. And their reply
I am
was,
not
do you
okay.
remember the finish? Yeah, their reply was, do you remember the finish? Which, fortunately, was like the very next move. And I said, yeah, I remember the finish, because I've done this job for so long that now I can just like autopilot it, unless I get, severely messed up like I did against Odinson. So yeah, that was a sour taste in my mouth.
So
for sure.
Again, shout out to Odinson, but excuse me. Going into the ending of that match, once you started to come to like the next couple of days and the recollection and stuff, like it all set in that you didn't want to do it no more. Like what was that conversation like? Did you talk to your girl about it? Did you like sit down with anybody, your fellow wrestlers? Was it just a private conversation, or did you just say, hey, I'm done?
So because I didn't have any recollection of it at all, about saying that to her, I called a guy called Johnny Walker, who runs Universal Championship Wrestling. And I'd obviously, just taken the belt in the previous match for them that I got the concussion in. And I said, listen, I'm really not sure how long I can or want to do this for anymore. And I said, I got a concussion this past weekend, and it's really knocked me for a loop. Like, my neck muscles were tensed, were consistently tense and knotted for, I want to say, about 5 months, which sounds like an over-exaggeration, but it's genuinely not. And even up until my last match, which was in February, like the following day and after the match, my whole sternum would be it would be on fire. It would hurt to breathe. It would hurt to laugh. It would hurt to talk. So I don't know if I bruised it or if I cracked it when I took that move from Odinson. I have no idea, because truth be told, I never went to the hospital. I wasn't dead. I wasn't paralyzed. I could move. I knew I had a concussion. I knew I got a stinger, and I knew that I'd either cracked, bruised, or broken my sternum. I knew essentially that I was fucked, and I had to take time off, which I think I took about a month off or something like that. But I remember calling him and talking to him and saying, listen, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this, because I keep getting fucking hurt, and I'm fed up of getting hurt. And he said, it's the people who you're in a ring with, and you need to learn that, with all due respect, you're not, 22 anymore. You're 35, and you know, maybe you just can't do some of the stuff that you used to do when you were 22. So he said, you know, change your style, wrestle a little bit safer. He said he would look after me and put me in with, like, you know, safe people, which he did. And I carried on going until January. And then over the Christmas break, I was just sat there thinking about stuff. I thought, you know, you're 35. You haven't even had a sniff at a tryout for the WWE. Been there twice as an extra in NXT and not used. Done a dark match for Ring of Honor in 2016. Did a background spot in Impact Wrestling in, I think, 2017. And haven't even had like any contacts from AEW, even after sending them emails and stuff like that. And it's just like, you're 35, you're not getting any younger, you're not going to get signed. And is it really worth still throwing yourself at the floor for, you know, less than you're worth at the end of the day? Because, you know, obviously in the wrestling business as it is today, there's so many companies around and people are trying to save a dime and stuff like that. And, you know, I would work for less than my rate that I desired for some places because, you know, people that run it are my friends and, you know, I like them. Like, prime example, you and Ella up at USWA. You gave me a price and I was like, you know what, fuck it. My brother-in-law and his wife can come and watch me wrestle. I've got somewhere to stay the night afterwards because they live 35 minutes from there. I enjoyed wrestling up there before when I was in a tag team because the crowd were always hot, the crowd were always good, and I might, you know, make up the difference just in some, you know, some pictures and stuff like that. So yeah, screw it, I'll do it. And I remember saying to you, like, I have no issues doing that, but can you give me like decent opponents? And I think either you or Ella said to me, well, how does John Davis sound? And I was like, oh, fuck yeah, that's
sold. Sold immediately.
Sold. I didn't know until I turned up at the show, but you'd announced like all of the other matches and stuff like that. So I put two and two together. I said to the missus on the way up, I was like, I think I'm wrestling John Davis. And if I'm wrestling John Davis, we're going to have a fucking banger of a match because he's so good. And I'll be honest, actually, since I came back in 2020, from that whole point up until, you know, ending in February this year, Stunt and John were my two favorite matches since I came back. And John edges that just because of like the amount of bullshitting we did before the start of the match. And we didn't even have to like converse it to one another. It was just like, I'm going to do this and I hope you're going to react to it. And I'm sure he did something with the same thought in mind, and it just fucking worked. And it was so much fun. I remember coming back after that match. I was like, fuck yeah, that's what wrestling should always be like, man.
It was so fun to watch that too, because I mean, the banter between you guys beforehand, it's like, if these fans keep saying such and such, I'm going to leave. And then you go to leave and they cheer, and then you'd walk back out, they boo and then cheer and boo and cheer. It was just so much fun. And then John's like, all right, enough of the bullshit, get in the ring, like catch this ass whipping like a man.
Let's fight.
Yeah. And then you guys you wound up having a banger of a match, man. And that's the one thing like you can count on with USWA is like when you contact a guy and he says, who am I working? And you mention like certain names, so like John Davis is always at the top of that list. Even if it's like the most green person, they've only got like a year in the business. So they think that wrestling John is going to give them that experience that they need, the rub and whatnot. And I give credit where credit's due. The man's fantastic in front of the camera and behind the camera.
I agree.
We have our differences and opinions on a lot of things, but the end all be all is always that we come to a mutual agreement and like have a certain amount of professional and personal respect for each other. And like whenever I heard that match was going to go down, it's like, oh shit, that's gonna be awesome, because I've seen you before. I seen the tag team stuff. I knew who you were, and then obviously John being a best friend of mine since I was like 16 years old, I was like, okay, well, I'm satisfied with this. I don't need to see anything else on the card. Like, it's whatever. The fan in me comes out whenever shit like that happens, and I love that. And I can imagine that wrestling being fun is the same for a lot of the guys backstage and stuff too. It's like, you want to go out there, you want to have a good time, you want to make it easy for yourself, you want to do very little, get a big reaction, and then kind of shoot the shit and make a memory, you know? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember walking past you on the way to the back, and I'm like, I'm really sorry for going over on time. And you were like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I was like, fuck it, dude. I think you guys went like maybe 7 to 10 over, but it was whatever. The fans loved it. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
It didn't matter to me. And that's kind of the conversation I've been having with a lot of people is like, sometimes wrestling is wrestling, you know, with the main guys on your card, you need a story, something that somebody can get behind to kind of build them, especially if they're not built. Like we've done with Stunt in the Elite Championship and the Don Curtis Memorial Cup and things like that. But with guys like you and John, you can just go out there and wrestle and fans are going to love it. They don't have to follow your every move. Yeah. They don't have to follow his every move. They just know that when they hear his theme song that we custom put together, that Run, they know that as soon as that guitar hits, somebody's about to get their ass beat. And then, you know, when you come out there,
someone's about to regret their life decisions.
Yeah. Somebody's about to get chopped to death. Somebody's going to catch the Siberian bear crusher. Somebody's going to get 3 seconds around the world. And then that's it. It's over. It's done. It's you got a little bit of the glitter, kid. And I love that because I go back and I tease John all the time. Like I'll send him a match from I believe it was 2007. It was him versus Ricky Ortiz in ECW and on WWE ECW. And I'll send it to him and I'll be like, hey, you remember this? And he'd be like, dude, fuck you. Because he hates it so much. And I was like, dude, you don't understand. Like if you go back and watch that match, like the fans in the crowd, I don't know where they were. I think it was like New York or something. They were chanting his name. And at that time he was only in the business for a couple of years. Like he had just transitioned out of the whole holla back days. You know what I mean? So
they might have known him from like Evolve or something like that.
Something. Yeah. I don't know, but like he just that kind of reputation precedes itself. And so when guys come along and we try to book them and they're like, hey, can I wrestle John? Well, John's already got another opponent. Well, fuck, man, maybe next time. And then the next time never comes. But for a lot of guys, you just get lucky. You see a guy who's built like yourself. You know, you need somebody who's going to stand up to John. Technically, athletically, personally, professionally. And then you put two guys like yourself and him in the ring and boom, you got yourself an easy match, a banger, like legit.
Yeah.
And
yeah, for sure.
So you leaving the business, that going back and thinking about stuff like that doesn't give you the itch at all? Like those easy opponents, those moments?
The only thing I would really like to do is actually have like a match that is definitively like my last match, that at the same time I don't want all the attention for it. I don't want the whole, oh, you're retiring, you know, thank you, blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. On the one hand it's nice, it's an ego rub, but then on the other hand it's like I'd kind of like rather like fade away and stuff like that. And like I was a little bit annoyed with my last match at UCW because I didn't get that, like it wasn't like a clean finish to the match, which was, you know, storyline purpose, which, you know, as a wrestler and as a worker with, you know, a wrestling mind, it makes total sense. You know, the guy who holds your belt is about to drop it to someone else and he's not going to be back. So we need to do something to either start a new storyline for the new champion, or we need to do something to like inject, you know, some kind of angle into the match, especially when it's a heel. Yeah, especially when it's a heel dropping it to a baby face. And you can't see my face right now because like the camera's off so that I can record this. But you say retirement match, and I'm over here grinning ear to ear, like because the gears get going. The gears get going, man. Like I think about this shit all the time. I was like, Joey's got to do it one time. Come on, one time. And I'm not the guy who can make that call. That's a personal decision you have to make. But like, you know, I always want those moments for USWA fans, especially for people they either love or hate. Like when a guy's ready to call it quits, I'm like, yo, like if you're going to call it quits, you got to call it quits here. I want this to be the moment, you know, that everybody remembers. Like, and you say you don't want adulation or anything for it, but like just to know in your heart of hearts that this place that you love so much and that you have a lot of respect for, and the guys have a lot of respect for you, that's where you finished up and you had an absolute classic of a match at the end. That's where we are. The way that I look at it, as I said, all that stuff before from a wrestler point of view, I get it, I understand it. But then from a selfish personal point of view, it's like, man, I put 15 years of my life into this dream.
Right.
And all right, I didn't chase the dream to the fullest extent that I wanted to chase it to, and that, you know, I envisioned chasing it to when I was 14 years old playing the WWE anthology album in my mom and dad's kitchen, and like with my like $10 Walmart championship belts, like doing all of the different entrances, you know, when the music would come on, and like standing on a chair and holding up my hands and like envisioning one day I'm going to be stood on the second rope in a ring, and there's going to be people here, not specifically to watch me, but there's going to be people here watching me. And then, you know, obviously being 14 years of age and having like...
I was going to say, how old were we when that album came out? Like 14, because I remember...
14, yeah.
I was going to say...
14, it was 2003.
Yeah. You're a couple years older than I am, so I think I was like 12 or 13 as well when it came out. I was like, oh man, I remember disc 3, the new era of music, man. Like Here Comes the Money.
Like 18 songs on it. Yeah.
Like I like the yellow CD with Shawn Michaels music. That was the only one. And then they had the alternate version of the Undertaker's theme. Like I used to do the same shit, man. I'd sit in the kitchen and put a Walmart belt over my my shoulder and pretend that I was in that moment. That's why I like kind of like where I am now. I guess I'm still just a kid at heart who's trying to capture that. But you know, with the with the idea of a final match and stuff like that, I always use movie quotes and stuff to kind of simplify things. And I say the Fast and Furious quote that Han said in Tokyo Drift: life's simple. You make decisions and you don't look back. So this is one of those decisions that you personally have to make for yourself. Is like, if you're willing to do it, I'm willing to find a way to negotiate that to happen. But if you're willing to like hang it up and call it quits, man, like I respect that, because I was there for the moment that all the bad shit happened, you know, and I don't want to see that happen again. But, you know.
Oh, you were there for all of the bad shit. You witnessed all of the bad shit. Yeah. I mean, I'm open to it. I mean, I would have like a couple of parameters. I mean, honestly, if I were to fantasy book it, then I would have zero issue with it being up at USWA. And I would want it to be against John, because I know that if I'm kind of like not fully with it, then he would be able to carry me through the match and stuff like that. But like, as you said, you know, it's something that I need to think about. I mean, I've started playing soccer again, or as I call it, football, because that's the real name for it. Sorry to offend all the United States listeners here. I've started playing that again for like the first time in probably 10 or 12 years. And I realized that at the age of 35, I can no longer just walk onto a pitch, you know, without warming up and just start playing like, you know, at like maximum effort. About 3 weeks ago, I strained my hamstring really bad. And I took a couple of weeks off and went back last week and it felt good. And then I went back this week and it felt all right. And then one of the guys, he's like, how'd you get that bruise on the back of your leg? I'm like, what bruise on the back of my leg? And like, I had a picture taken of it when I got home, and I'm like,
tore something.
Did I get that bruise on the back of my leg? I don't know, because I would have assumed that if I'd have torn my hamstring 3 weeks ago, it would have already bruised by now. So I think I might have done it just like goofing around, or I might have knocked on something. But
that's just how it happens.
And then, yeah, it is. And like when I'm driving home last night afterwards, I'm feeling all like miserable, like, God fucking damn it, I'm old. I hate this shit. Yeah. And then I'm thinking, because like the next thing that popped into my head was, you know, I do want that one more match to definitively be done like on my terms. And I'm like, but do I really want to throw myself at the floor and wake up the next day feeling like I just got, you know, run over by a train and then a bus and then had like an A380 land on me as well? Do I want that? And it's kind of like, it's like an evil toss-up. It's like, on the one hand, I get to say goodbye. But
yes.
I get to wake up and be like, motherfucker, that really hurts.
Yes, you do. And I'll tell you why. Because at that point, you'll know deep in the pit of your stomach that you went out on your terms and not the way that was accidentally brought upon you. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to think about it like that.
Yeah.
Like you kind of went out with like the concussion and the losing teeth and the back body drop and didn't get to finish the match. And then you had a couple matches after that where, like, you know, like you said, you didn't exactly have the action and the reaction that you wish you would have had. But like at this point, if you plan it out and you do it correctly, even if you are banged up a little bit, or even if you are laying on the floor staring at the lights and stuff like that, you've done it professionally. You've done it the way that most guys come in and out of the business, and you actually get to leave with that moment to like say, hey, I did it. I went out on my terms. I'm officially done. And then that's it.
Yeah.
You just go on about your other side. I mean, like I said, you have to think about it, but like, you know, there's private conversations to be had.
Well, it's funny because I said a couple of days ago, I said, you know, I'm going to mention that I didn't get the match I wanted to, you know, leave it on. And I was like, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing to say? And she's like, no, say it. Like, you got to speak your mind. And I said, I just know that as soon as I mention that, your wheel's going to start turning. You're going to make that offer. So, yeah I kind of foresaw it, which is really funny. But no, it'd be good to do. It's something that, you know,
I see you.
Goes, you got spotted. we can edit that. But like, it's like one of those things where, I need to have a lot of deliberation. I need to have a lot of conversation about it and a lot of thought about it. I mean, I would like to go out essentially in my own way, like on my shield, basically, and, you know, have that moment afterwards and just say to the fans, you know, thank you, I appreciate it, because, you know, whether you love it or whether you hate, you know, that wrestler in a ring, the reason that wrestler is in a ring is because they have a love, and that love that they have is for entertaining people. Like, I got such, and we're going back to it, but I got such a kick out of that match with John, because it's like the one thing that I thought of, like in the moment in the ring where I'm on the outside and he's on the inside, I literally just flashed back to like 98, 99, and like he's like Stone Cold Steve Austin in the ring. He's like, get in here, kid, I'm gonna whoop your ass. And I'm like stood like in the entranceway, like Triple H or Rocky Maivia, like I ain't getting in the ring, I ain't having none of that shit. And then like you just have the crowd going backwards and forwards, and they're hot and they're electric and they want it and they need it, and then you actually give it to them. And it wasn't a case of like you have all that shit before the match and then you get in there and the crowd die. It's like you have all that shit before the match, you get in there and the crowd stay hot as shit right until the very end, even to the point I think they were like serenading me, hey, nah, goodbye, or whatever the song is. When
they wanted you to peace out, man. They wanted you gone.
They wanted me to get the fuck out of there. And I literally went back after the match. I'm like, Jesus fuck. And John's like, you good? I'm like, I've never had so much fun in a wrestling ring in all my life, like ever.
Yeah, I think it was because of that moment they actually brought back the old chant, John's gonna kill you.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Because like I said, as soon as that music hit, whoever was about to come out was gonna get their ass beat, and unfortunately, you did. But
unfortunately, so I remember talking to you actually after that match with like with the reaction I got. I think we were messaging about it online.
Yeah,
and I remember saying to you that I wanted to start coming out to Rule Britannia, which obviously the British Bulldog used, and I wanted to either get like a big Union
metal
Jack,
version,
like and I wanted to get like a big Union Jack like cape, the same as the Bulldog had at like SummerSlam '92, or like something similar to it. And like I remember, I got the email address for his daughter, Georgia, or whatever her name is, and I sent her an email to say, hey, you know, this is who I am, this is what I do. I'm writing to ask permission to pay homage to your dad as a fellow Englishman in America. Like, would you have an issue with me essentially ripping off what he used to wear for his entrance? And I never got a reply, so I didn't want to be rude and arrogant and just go ahead and do it anyway. And then the other idea I had was getting a red jacket. I know we spoke about that as well, getting like a proper military red jacket and still coming out to Rule Britannia, but not a rock version, and like really, really playing up the whole British thing, especially with it being in Jacksonville, and like you're only like a stone's throw away from St. Augustine, which was like, it was a huge area of conflict, like back in the 1700s when the British occupied it and the Spaniards came over. Like it was a huge port, obviously, and like the fort is still there. which actually I remember doing my promo for Stunt Marshall outside the fort.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I was like, you remember that promo you did? Or
I remember the promo. You've been the USWA Elite Champion for 2 years, mate. That's amazing. Actually, mate, it's been 3 because COVID happened.
Right.
And I can't do fucking math.
Yeah, we don't count the COVID years. So
we don't count COVID. COVID was like the blip.
I honestly forget that it was 3 years ago because I don't remember shit from the COVID. Like I just got talked to by my boss at my job the other day. He's like, you're approaching like the 4-year mark. I was like, what? I just got here. Yeah. And I was like, I don't even remember COVID.
The only thing I remember about COVID was actually having COVID itself.
Same.
Like just after Christmas in 2020. Like we had the lockdown at the beginning of 2020, and I worked for Pasco County as a utility worker. So I was technically classed as like frontline personnel because if anything happened with like any water utility, I had to go out and fix it or help with it. So I still worked, but like the roads were so empty for like the month of like January and February because they put us in this county on a 30-day lockdown. Like you couldn't go anywhere unless it was essential. And then like I got through the entire year, and then 2 days after Christmas, I had COVID. I was at work and I'm drinking a can of Monster. I'm like, this doesn't taste right.
Oh. And
then I felt really, really, really shit about 2 hours later. And I went home and I went and got a test, and they were like, yeah, you got COVID.
Yeah, let me tell you, man, if you've never had a Monster and you know what it tastes like and stuff like that, like if you can't taste Monsters, something is wrong, because that stuff is not only acidic as hell, but it's not only is it acidic, but it's sugary and sweet as hell. If you can't taste Monster, you know you got COVID. Like I've heard people talk about like, oh, I can't taste the Coca-Cola. Well, I've had several Coca-Colas that I can't taste either, not being sick or with COVID or anything like that. But if you can't taste Monster, that's a telltale sign, especially if you can't smell it. Because the second you crack open that can, that smell just hits you. You already know what it is. You can smell it from a mile away. If you're a Monster fiend or something like that, and you drink them religiously, if somebody has one, they crack it open, you're like, oh, I know what that is. Because it's very familiar. Yep. It's very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a very original, unique smell and taste. So if you can't taste that, man, you are screwed. But
I agree.
So getting out of the...
Do you mind if I run to the bathroom really quick, if you hold that thought? Because I know you were going to ask me something. I'll run to the bathroom and then I'll come back, all right?
Yeah, do your thing. I'll go ahead and sit here and bullshit with the people for a minute. There he is, and we're coming back. There he is. Weird. Longest piss ever.
So, hey, listen, dude, I haven't had kids, but I swear to, obviously, because I don't have the genetic makeup for it, but I swear to God, I got mob bladder or something, man. If I gotta go, I gotta go.
No, same. All right,
what were you gonna ask anyway before I...
No, I was gonna say, getting out of the COVID thing, man. Let's talk about your disappearance. Let's talk about you leaving the business and stuff, because there was a good moment there for like what was it, like a couple months. I was like, yo, where the fuck did Joey go? Like his social media is gone. Like I forgot to ever get your phone number, so I couldn't text you and figure out like if it was something that I said or did, or you going through some personal shit, try to check on you and stuff like that. You just kind of like disappeared. So like what happened with that? Going by the real name now? Like send him text messages and shit. What happened? Was that part of the I'm leaving the gimmick behind, I'm leaving wrestling, or what was going on with that?
Are we on about 2019, which opens Pandora's box, or are we on about 2023? Which one are we talking about?
We are wherever you want to be, my friend. Whatever you're comfortable with discussing. I can always go in and post. This isn't live. We can always go post, and I can cut some stuff out if you wish. But just wherever you want to go.
So the 2023 thing. I mean, so I was at UCW. I was in the bathroom having a dump. Sorry to be crude. And I'm just sat there. I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to get out of the business, I don't need like the social media for it. There's no point in having it. There's no point in keeping it. You know, after I leave, anyone who I'm close with, or the way I see it is on my personal Facebook, if it's someone that I would hang out with away from my shoot job or away from wrestling, then I will have you on my Facebook, basically.
Fair enough.
So my whole thought process was, you know, anyone that I want to interact with, I'll end up seeing them in people who you may know, and I'll add them. case in point, when I saw you and Ella, I'm like, fuck, I can't believe I didn't add Brandon and Ella to my personal Facebook, because, you know, not blowing smoke up your ass, you're the lovely people, man. Like, you're both really nice people.
I remember getting that ad and I was like, yo, is this fake? Because I remember this page being deactivated. I was like, yo, have you been hacked? Like, is this, because I mean, excuse me, lately there have been a lot of like foreign accounts that like clone others. It happened to my uncle and stuff like that, and he almost got me. Like, I'm an advocate for like, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Like, don't click these random links. The next thing I know, like, I'm getting a message from you like, oh snap, you know, is this fake or not? Hang on, I'm trying to adjust my microphone here because it fell over on my face.
No, you're good.
But I remember texting you.
You sent me a text.
Is this like, fake or
is this you? Yeah, you got one, and like I remember she emailed me actually. In, I think it was April or something. It was about a month after I started wrestling, and she sent me an email saying, "Hey Joey, you've completely disappeared off the internet. Like, is everything okay?" And like, I think I texted you and I sent you a text, like, assuming that you would talk to her at some point during the week, and said, "Hey, you know, I just got a message, you know, just so you know, and let her know as well, I'm good and I'm not wrestling anymore." But yeah, like, I just deleted everything. I figured there's no point in being on anymore. Like,
right,
I use my personal one to speak to people from home, and it's like it's pretty well hidden. Like, I think it comes up in a search, but I don't think it shows up in people who you may know and stuff like that.
No, it's actually, it's very private. I was going to tell you, like, I was going to ask, I was like, how'd you do this? Because like, I've been trying to do this for a while and I forgot what it was at the time. I think I figured it out. I was like, yo, even with it being public, it's like, you can't see this. Like, how'd you, because I can't find that. Because I don't use Facebook on the computer. I use Facebook on my phone. And I don't I don't like the full app. Like, I don't have the blue one. I have the white one, which I guess is called Facebook Lite or something like that. It cuts out all of like, it doesn't autoplay videos. It doesn't do it. I do that to kind of like save my battery and preserve space in my phone. So I don't have the same access to everything mobily that I would if I use the actual like app for the official app and the website on the computer. I never log into Facebook on my computer. I just don't want that distraction, especially when I'm working on like, say, a video or a song or something. But then I got that not the message, but that ad. I'm like, yo, hold up. And I forget at what point I realized I didn't have your phone number, but I remember texting you and I was like, after I had acquired your phone number, I was like, hey man, have you been hacked? Cause I got a message from your page with your real name on it. And I'm like, okay, I don't believe we were ever like personal, like we had the gimmick pages and whatnot, but I don't think I ever had your personal Facebook because we weren't like real close at the time. But I saw that and I immediately like tripped out because, like I said, you know, there's an influx of foreign accounts that are cloning stuff, and I almost got. Like, I'm a huge advocate on not clicking links and protecting your information as much as you can, because that's kind of what I do on the background. And I always tell people, it's like, yo, don't click this. Trust me, you don't want to open Pandora's box and whatnot. Of course I do, but you don't want to open that Pandora's box specifically and find yourself, you know, next thing you know, your bank account's getting hacked and stuff like that. So I proper precaution. I was like, yo, is this you? And you're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, well, fucking add it then. So I added it to
they can hack my account as much as they want. I ain't got no money.
Facts. I said that. I was like, yo, you can kidnap me, and if you send a ransom, you're gonna get like $20. That's it.
Yeah, but you might as well just kill me if you're going to kidnap me.
Yeah, but I was happy to like go in there and see, like, you know, okay, he respects me on a personal level. I've got the personal information. Like, that was cool. Like, I think I'd found out later she emailed you because I said to her I hadn't heard from you in a while, and I noticed that when I went on IG, I was going to tag you in something or like a clip or something, and I noticed that your Instagram was gone, and I was like, well, this fucker blocked me. What an asshole. Nope. Like, I'm sure I wouldn't have pissed him off. And if I did, he would have talked to me about it. And then like, I just went and looked for your other stuff. And I was like, okay, all of it's gone. So like, maybe it's not a personal thing. Maybe it's professional. And then like a couple months later, here comes the real name. And I'm like, oh, well, all right.
Interesting.
Just to be on the safe side, let me go ahead and shoot this message. That's when she said she emailed you. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. That's fair. So,
I think a lot of people probably thought I'd block them or whatever, but no, I didn't. I just didn't feel the need to put up a post saying, hey, y'all, I've retired, so this is getting deleted in 24 hours. Bye.
All right.
Because I couldn't be bothered with the whole some people being like, "Oh, thank you," and then there's bound to be like one person who's like, "Yeah, fuck you, good riddance, business is better without you," and then it just starts a fucking.
I'm sure there's one of those
keyboard war. Oh, I can think of two off the top of my head.
All right. Well, with that being said, this is the part where the regular portion of the podcast ends for the regular listeners. This next portion is going to be for personal conversation, and also if Joey wants to get into it, it's up to him. But if this is where it ends and this is where I cut it off abruptly, sorry. I'll put my outro on YouTube and then we'll just go on from there. But from that point on, I'm just gonna ask the question, man. The personal page.
I mean, you can always ask, like, you know, what am I doing now that I'm not wrestling? And I'll tell people that. I don't mind.
Yeah. The personal page, man. It apparently was deactivated for quite a while, and it recently made a comeback. You want to talk about why?
So actually, the personal page that you have is one I started in January 2020. Okay. The other personal page that I have or had.
That's the one with you standing straight up, right? Like with your hands behind your back. Is that one? The other one you couldn't get into?
That's the Joey Ozbourne one, which I can't get into, which I haven't been able to get into since the second week of October in 2019. And I think I will say people in the know will know why, because I've told my side of that story to many people who at one time or another were blasting me about other events or other versions of that story that were told. And I saw it because I saw it on a Facebook post and I saw all of the comments, and I made a lot of mental notes about who had said something disparaging, which was obviously everyone commenting on the post. Yeah. And, you know, I knew that eventually I would see them one way or another, be it in wrestling or just out and about locally for the people that lived, you know, in Florida and in the area. And then obviously I ended up getting back into wrestling, which, you know, I had no intention of doing. And I just ended up getting back into it because, you know, I missed it. I watched the Rumble the same day that Kobe Bryant died, and Edge came back, and I was like, holy fucking shit, that's cool. Because, like, obviously no one expected him to come back, and he was the first person to return from, like, a career-threatening injury. And then I watched Raw the next night, and obviously he does the promo because everyone wants to know what he's going to say. And I watched it, and his words were, you know, I didn't get to leave this business on my terms. Like, I got told, you have to leave this business. Like,
it's toxic.
You know, yeah, like he basically said, you know, I didn't get to leave on my terms. I didn't get to say, all right, I'm done. Like, here are my boots. I'm in the middle of the ring. This is over now. And, like, I'm sat there. I'm like, fuck yeah. And then on the other hand, I'm like, fuck, why did I watch this? Because then it's like, I didn't get to do that. You know, like initially I wanted to take a break, but then the ensuing drama that followed it, which, you know, I didn't have a phone at the time, so I didn't have Facebook, and I wouldn't have been able to access my old page anyway. So, I mean, fortunately, like, I missed a lot of that. I mean, there were friends who would see stuff and update me, which didn't help my mental health at all.
Right.
To the point where actually, fuck it, might as well go ahead and say it, since we're having a very frank and honest conversation. I tried to commit suicide on Christmas morning, and I tried to commit suicide on New Year's Day in 2019 and 2020, respectively.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, my method of doing it was really fucking dumb. I figured I'm just going to walk out into the middle of the road and get run over and hope that that's it, and it's done with, and I'm gone. Obviously, it's Christmas Day and it's New Year's Day. No one's on the road, and the people that were on the road were swerving around me because they're like, oh, this drunk fucking asshole, because I was just trying to walk out into the road. And it was like, it was a 2-lane road, 1 lane in either way, and like obviously like people swerving around me. About a week or 2 later, I was walking to the gym, and my head was just like all over the place. And the way that I equate it to, for anyone who has seen Superman 2, the Christopher Reeve movie where he gives up his powers, he goes in this like crystal chamber, and it kind of like has like a chest up profile. And at one point you see the two sides of him like tearing away and fading out the side with like an anguished look on their face. And it sounds really corny and it sounds really cheesy, but that's the only thing I can equate it to how I felt. Like, I remember who I was as a wrestler and it was going away. And I remembered who I was as a person and it was going away. And I didn't know who I was left with. Like, I didn't know who this guy was. And my head was just so scrambled, and I was not in a good place at all. I lost weight. I'd gone from 220 to about 165.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, I was pretty much skin and bone. I mean, I've lost weight now since like I've stopped wrestling and going to the gym as much, but like that weight loss was drastic because I wasn't eating a lot. I wasn't working out. I was just
depression
drinking water
set
and
in.
eating shitty. Yeah, drinking water, eating shitty gas station food, and drinking in the evening to try and like help myself sleep.
So basically, you were on the Brandon diet.
Yeah. So,
dude, that's some dark shit. Like I'm so glad you failed. I'm so glad you failed.
At this point in my life, now where I am as well, to be honest with you. But I called a mental health hotline, and I can't remember the name of the woman, but bless her heart, she was lovely. And I turned around and I was walking back from the gym, and I was literally pouring my heart out to this stranger on the phone. And she said to me, "Do you want me to send someone to come and see you to make sure that you're okay?" And I said, "Okay, yeah, I think that would be a wise idea." And I went back to the place I was staying, and I'm just sat on my bed, and I hear a knock at the door, and I say to her, "Oh, hold on a minute, someone's knocking on my door." She said, "Yeah, I think that might be the person I've sent to see you." And I said, "Okay." I opened the door, and there were 3 police officers stood there, and they've all got their hands on their hips. Yeah, like ready. And I said to her, "Did you send the police?" And she said, yes, I did. They're going to speak to you, and they're going to make an on-the-spot evaluation and ask you a couple of questions, and then they're going to go from there, and I'm going to check in with you in a couple of weeks. And so I said, okay. So the police officer, she asked me a few questions about what was going on, what had happened, and I told her. And she said, "If you want, we can take you somewhere to speak to someone," which I said, yeah, I really think I need this help right now, because I didn't know what else to do, where else to turn. And they took me to an inpatient facility, and I was put in a waiting room and then taken into another waiting room on my own. And I had like no idea what was happening. Like, I didn't know where I was, or, what the purpose of me being there was for. I thought I was going to, speak to someone who was going to like recommend, like, speaking to this person or that person. Yeah. And then a psychologist comes in, and they said, "I want you to tell me everything." So I literally told them everything from like day one of being in the situation I was in, how, it started good, and then it evolved to a lot of negative stuff going on, a lot of negative things being said, a lot of mental manipulation, eventually leading to, more than just verbal altercations. And when I told her, everything that had happened, she said to me that I was clearly suffering from manic depression and severe anxiety. And they Baker acted me for 72 hours.
You basically got 5150'd.
Yeah. I got put on Lexapro, which is an antidepressant, and then I got put on an anti-anxiety medication, which I can't say the name of it to save my life. I can't even remember the name of it, but it was basically Benadryl that they put me on.
Yeah. So you were loopy and out of it most of the time.
Yeah, I would take the antidepressant and anxiety med at the same time. And within 30 minutes, I'd be knocked out. Like, I'd be out like a light, which was great because I obviously wasn't sleeping very well at the time anyway. But I got admitted on the Friday morning at about 1 in the afternoon. I then had a psychiatric evaluation where they determined the same as the psychologists had determined. And I remember being sat in this like social area with like a load of other people, and there were two different wards. There was the ward for substance abuse, and there was a ward for psychological issues. So I obviously should have been in a ward for psychological issues, but I wasn't deemed as much of a risk as the people in the psychological ward were. So they put me in the substance abuse ward, which, you know, I obviously wasn't abusing substances. I did a blood test and I tested positive for marijuana. You know, big shocker. I don't know of many people that don't, you know, do that. Like, you know, at the time I did because it was a coping mechanism and it was like self-medicating, which, you know, probably wasn't the best idea. And I don't do it now. I don't need to do it now because I have no need to. And I was there Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And I remember the Friday, I just broke down, like sobbing my heart out, like gut wrench crying, like when it hurts. And one of the nurses there, she asked me what was wrong. And I actually knew this nurse from the gym. And I said to Mike, what the fuck do you think is wrong with me? I've been fucking Baker acted. I'm on the other side of the world. I don't have any friends, any family here. Like, I'm on my own. Like, I'm scared. Like, I am scared shitless. And I was there for 72 hours, getting woken up at 5 a.m. to go and give blood. And then they discharged me at about noon on the Sunday. And I went home with medication and honestly felt, you know, a lot better. And I know that was the medication talking, but it's what I needed at the time. And I stayed on the medication for a month. And I enjoyed being on it, but I didn't enjoy, you know, some of the side effects. Like, if I drank a beer whilst being on the medication, I wouldn't sleep. I would be like amped. It would be like I had an intravenous drip of cocaine or something. And I've never tried cocaine, so I really can't use that as the right example. But like, I would drink a beer at night and I didn't want to go to sleep. I was wide awake. So at the end of the January, I weaned myself off it, like doing a pill every other day. And then I just stopped completely. And, you know, since then, until I stopped wrestling, I've been okay. I got depressed after my last concussion. And then I decided to stop wrestling, which depressed me even more. And rather than going down the same avenue as I went down before when I was on my own, obviously now, you know, there's a lot more at stake for the people that are, you know, around me. It would affect them, you know, a hell of a lot more than it would have done before I even knew them. You know, like now I have a responsibility, like a real responsibility, which I thrive on. I went and actually seeked out counseling from a therapist, and I was going there every week for about 3 or 4 months. And my last session was two weeks ago. And now I don't have one until August when I go back to work. Because everything is fine. I'm now able to, like, I couldn't watch the Royal Rumble this year without being pissed off, because I'd already made up my mind at that point that I was going to walk away. And, you know, Cody returns, awesome pop. But then at the end, he's getting that reception. And I'm like, motherfucker, like, that's what I've always wanted. Like, you know, I wanted to wrestle, I wanted to get injured, and then I wanted to return at the Rumble and, like, win the fucking thing and just have that moment on the rope. Like, I'm going to WrestleMania, you know, that whole gimmick. And, like, I got depressed watching that. And, you know, the missus saw it, the missus recognized it. And then I couldn't watch wrestling for a minute. I think I watched Elimination Chamber, or whatever the February PLE was. And then I watched WrestleMania, and I could watch WrestleMania as a worker, as a fan, even though I'm not a worker anymore.
All right.
I could watch it as a worker and like as a fan and enjoy it and like appreciate it and be like, oh yeah, this is cool. This is WrestleMania. This is the most exciting time of year, you know, to be a wrestler. Whether you're a wrestler or a fan, it's the best time of year apart from the Royal Rumble, because those are the best two pay-per-views.
Season finale, baby.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And then I watched Money in the Bank this past weekend, and there's still, like, I'm still watching it through the eyes of a wrestler, and I think I'm always going to, because I did it for 15 years. That's like nearly half of my life. You know, I'm 35. And I watched it, you know, through the eyes of a wrestler, but I was able to enjoy it a lot more as a fan. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I've enjoyed all the PLEs that I've watched, because I don't watch Raw. I watch SmackDown every now and again, but, you know, I'm normally busy, or it's like at the end of like a long week, or it's at the start of the weekend. With what I do for work now, you know, I need to make sure that I get my rest. Just before Thanksgiving. Yeah, just before Thanksgiving, I started working at a middle school as a discipline assistant, which basically means that I aid teachers when they have kids in their class who are, you know, not behaving. If a kid gets a what is it called? A referral, then I'm the guy that processes all of the referrals for that grade.
So basically, if you're being a terrible child, you don't want to see DA Joe show up.
Pretty much. Like the principal knew that I wrestled. Like he wasn't aware that I was, you know, in the midst of preparing to be done with it. Like he was under the impression I was like a full-time wrestler still at the weekend. And I remember doing my interview with him, and it was the most casual interview I had, man. Like, I'm wearing a pair of basketball shorts right now, and I was wearing a white t-shirt, and I went into my closet and I put on a button-up t-shirt, and I took my t-shirt into my basketball shorts, and I sat where I am right now talking to you at my desk, and I had a Zoom interview with him. And like, it was the easiest interview I've ever had. And like, he says to me, I got 3 questions to ask you. He said, if a teacher calls you to their class, how are you going to handle a disruptive student? And I said, well, you know, remove the student from the class, talk to them in the hallway, and like, you know, try to come to like some kind of understanding between the teacher and the student without having to talk to the teacher, you know, to be beneficial for the learning environment. Another one was, you know, if the kid, I think it was something like, if a kid comes up to you with an issue, you know, what would you do? To which, you know, the protocol is you start an investigation, it's basically like being a police officer, essentially. You do a witness, they give you an incident report form, and then they have to name other people that saw the incident happen if there were people there, and then you have to interview them, and then you have to interview the person that they're saying has done something, and if they have supporting people, then you have to interview them as well. And it's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, basically. Right. It's like being a school detective. It's really weird. Which was obviously the right answer. And then the third question was, what are you going to do if a child shouts a profanity at you? And I paused and I looked at him and I said, you know what I do at the weekends, don't you? He said, yeah. I said, I have heard some of the worst things in my life when I've been stood in a pair of Speedos and they've been yelled at me by children who are old enough to know better or young enough that their mom and dads don't give a damn what they say. And he said, so it's not going to bother you? I said, no, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. And on my first day there, I said, so essentially, like, what do you want me to do? And he looked at me and said, I want to see Joey Ozbourne in the hallways. I was like, Okay.
I get to be that guy. That's dope.
Yeah, I can do that. So it's a really, really, really fun job, really enjoyable. Being in the middle school, it's grade 6, 7, and 8, and I was with 8th grade last year, and that group of kids, who I doubt any of them are listening, but when we did their graduation ceremony, they asked me to present an award for the Outstanding Student of the Year. I had a script written down in front of me by the assistant principal, and I'd read it a couple of times, and I thought, I really want to ask if I can just throw something in on the fly, but I don't want to ask. I'd rather get permission. I'd rather get forgiveness than permission. And there's 600 kids, and they probably had about 3,000 people in the bleachers. And I introduced myself and got an ovation for it. Not like a standing ovation, but got an ovation for it. And I just said, I never thought I would be stood in a room full of about 3,000 people that applaud a discipline IA introducing themselves. That's really weird, which obviously, got a pop of amusement. And then I just said to the kids, that being their discipline IA for the last 6 or so months, because I didn't start at the beginning of the school year, I said being their discipline assistant for the last 6 months has been, and it genuinely was the best experience of my life. And through that, it's actually made me want to go back to school to get my degree to become a teacher, which I'm going to probably teach history, and not wanting to stop there, because from talking to you, you know me well enough to know that once I have my mind set on something, I want to take the next step and then the next step and then the next step.
Just make sure that if you're going to be a history teacher, you don't forget 1776. Biatch. Had to throw that in there.
Listen, this didn't happen in 1776, but I'm still really bitter about all that tea that was wasted. You know how many good cup of teas we could have had with that? It could still be lasting today. But
oh man, sounds like you're in a really good place now. So is that the next step? You're gonna go to school to be a teacher? Full fledged?
Gonna go to school to be a teacher, probably teach middle school, and then I'm gonna stay in school and do my leadership degree, which will allow me to be an assistant principal, and then eventually a principal, and then I may, for shits and giggles, do a doctorate as well. I may not, I don't know, but my ultimate goal now is to be a principal of either middle school, a high school, an elementary school, because I think I would get a kick out of that. My whole thought process is I don't want to be sat there when I'm 60 or 70 and I'm retired and I'm, nearing the end of my life, and I'm sat there and I'm thinking, you really just wasted your life. You didn't do anything with it. I think if I didn't have the job I have now that has the what's the word I'm looking
for? The
potential for growth. Yeah, if it didn't have the potential for growth that it has, and I was just doing if I was just cutting lawns or being a personal trainer for the next 40 years, then I know that when I'm 75, I'm going to be sat there and I'm going to fully be thinking I've wasted my life. I had all the potential in the world and I wasted it, and I've done nothing with it. And then I'll die being resentful. I'll die being miserable. I'll just die with a load of regret. And I feel that if I'm not going to achieve what I want to with professional wrestling, I feel if I can achieve that in an educational setting and help mold the future in a positive way, that then, when I'm retired and I'm 75 and I'm sat on my porch with a piece of straw in my mouth and a shotgun in the other hand saying, "Get the fuck off my porch, y'all," that, I'll be sat there happy because, I've done something beneficial and I've, hopefully been a positive influence on the current, of what would be the current generation of, full ass grown male and females in the world, or at least
it's kind of
a small part of the world.
It's kind of life imitates art a little bit. You want to get into the wrestling business to leave it better than it was when you first started. Sounds like you're doing that with the young minds of today's youth and stuff like that. You want to leave an impression on them, but you want to make the world a better place than it was when you started.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I just think it would be really cool at some point in the future to be, you know, a principal of like a middle school or an elementary or, you know, even a high school, which I probably wouldn't want to be high school because that would be a pain in the backside, I reckon. But like, you know, just have like a kid come in and be like, oh, my mom or dad was like at this school when you were the discipline assistant in like 2023. I'm like, oh, no way. I'm going to call your mom and dad, see how they're getting on.
And then that's when you're like, I'm an old fuck, man. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I've been doing this too long.
Like, oh.
So that begs the question.
But you made me feel old.
Yeah. That begs the question though. If one of your students walked up to you and said, I want to be a professional wrestler, what would you tell them?
Don't do it.
No, straight up honesty.
No, I mean, if it's one of my kids, I'm saying no. If it is one of the kids at school who I have, like, you know, a close bond with, and I almost see them as an extension of like my own family, and I have like informally, taken that kid under my wing, and I'm like, I'm just going to informally adopt you, and I'm going to say you're my son or you're my daughter, which, like, surprisingly, a handful of kids on the last day all came up to me and they said to me, thank you for everything this year, sir. Like, you've been like a dad to me. And there was this one kid, bless her heart, she was in floods of tears, and she was like, Mr. Wakely, you've been like a dad to me that I've never had in my entire life. And it was kind of like, oh, you got me. And then that made me cry.
That was going to be the other question I was going to ask, is like, when you're there, do they call you by the shoot name, or do you, because you said that the guy that interviewed you, he's like, I want Joey Ozbourne in the hallway. So do the kids refer to you as a shoot name, or do you tell them about your gimmick at all? Or like, they
found out slowly but surely that I wrestle. And then they found a load of videos online, and there's one video on there of me wrestling a guy called Paul Malin. He does a sunset flip from the outside in, and I was wearing a sparkly gold thong under my trunks. I said to him, when you sunset flip, I'm going to hold on to the ropes, and I want you to pants me, like, around my knees, and I'm wearing a thong underneath. And we did it, and I, like, turned to all four sides, and I'm like, what are you all looking at? Like, what's so funny? Why are you laughing? Giving off the illusion that I have no idea that, like,
right,
I've had my trunks pulled down, and then I realize and turn around and eat an RKO, and I'm just laying there with my ass out. So, like, some of the kids found that, and then that video ended up circulating a little bit, and everyone's like, I've seen you wearing a gold thong, Mr. Wakely. I'm like, cool, good for you. You've seen more than you should have done. I need to delete that video. And it probably has a load of hits on it, which is really funny. One of the kids had it. I don't know why he did this, but he took a screenshot of it and he saved it as his wallpaper on his home screen. And I'm like, Carson, get that fucking picture off your phone. Obviously, I didn't swear at him because of the member of staff. I can't, but like, yeah, bless him.
But like, yeah, you get two things going through your mind there. The first thing is like, holy shit, that's embarrassing. The second thing is, that's wildly inappropriate, man. Stop doing that shit.
The third thing I'm thinking is, I really hope it doesn't reach the principal, because then I have a lot of awkward questions to answer. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
But I think he would see the funny side of it, and he'd probably like, can you just like delete that maybe? I'm like, yeah, sorry, sir.
Yeah, so nah, man, it seems like you're in a really good spot, and like the last 34 minutes of this recording has pretty much been like the real Joey, the Joey that I know, and I appreciate you giving me that exclusive and stuff like that, man. That's some deep shit. And also, like, anybody out there who's listening to this or something like that, like, I just want to give them the advice that if you are going through a situation similar to this one or anything at all, do not be afraid to reach out to somebody, to talk to somebody. Obviously, this situation was completely different. You got somebody who's on the other side of the world, away from friends, away from family, and there's not a whole lot you can lean on. And I know a lot of people out there, they feel like that. Even when people are so close, they feel distant from a lot of people because they don't want to burden them with their problems. And I have a story that I will share eventually that is very similar to the one that Joey shared with us today. But if anybody out there is struggling with any kind of mental health issues, any deep dark thoughts, those invasive thoughts and stuff like that, don't hesitate to reach out to somebody. At the end of this video, I'll throw on the hotline and stuff like that. That stuff really does help. I know it seems cliche, it seems very gimmicky and stuff like that, but I have taken the same resources that Joey has taken, and it really does help in a sense. Like, first, when you're going through it, you feel helpless, but trust me, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, obviously you see a success story, 2 of them actually right in front of you right now, Joe and myself, who took the time to consider the options, and we're both in much better places. We both have a lot of stuff to still look forward to gain and a lot to lose, and you have to consider that stuff. So, Joey, is there anything that you want to add to that before we get out of here? Because I mean, I'm kind of starving. And
me too. I think dinner's ready, actually.
Yeah.
No, I mean, just to echo what you said, if you are going through anything, it doesn't make you weak for reaching out and getting help. It actually makes you stronger, because you're actually being able to acknowledge that there is something wrong, and you might not know what it is, but there's probably someone who is professionally trained to be able to tell you what that is. And it could genuinely be the difference between you living and dying. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that, lose their lives to suicide. And, if you can have the balls to contemplate doing that to yourself and to everyone around you, then you should also be able to have the balls to walk into a facility and say, hey, I'm not okay, I need help. And, not to denigrate anyone who has lost a loved one to suicide, but, a lot of the times it is the difference between someone being able to be like, yep, I need help, and someone being like, nope, I'm just going to be selfish, and I'm, gonna end it here.
To add to that, though, like a lot of people say communication is key, and I disagree with that. I think comprehension is key. Comprehension is so much more important. So like, you can communicate until you're blue in the face unless somebody understands.
If you can't communicate it to someone, then, how can you comprehend it? The first stage of dealing with something is being able to comprehend what's going on, and then being able to talk to someone about it. For myself, I knew I was not okay. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who the person was that was looking back at me in the mirror in the morning. So I knew that there was something wrong with me. So I knew I needed to get help. And I think if anyone is in that situation, then you should get help. And the thing that kind of annoys me about it nowadays is there's not a stigma around it anymore, which is good. It seems, from what I have witnessed, that it's becoming like an accessory. I've been diagnosed with bipolar, or I have schizophrenia, or I have depression. Everyone has depression now. And it's being used as in my opinion, and if it offends people, I'm sorry, but people use it as either a crutch, or they use it as some kind of accessory or something to, kind of brag about. I have depression. Why'd you have depression? Oh, because,
because my job sucks.
Died 5 years ago. Yeah, or my job sucks. Well, that's not depression, that's just life.
Yeah.
Not to denigrate your feelings, but
no, it took me a very long time to get to that point as well. I thought for a very long time, it's you said the word that I was looking for. It used to be a stigma, but I agree to disagree with what you just said about it being a crutch and stuff like that, to the sense that I believe now that everybody says they're diagnosed with this or has this because it's so openly available. It's easy to talk about now. There's so many resources out there for people to actually go, but there are people out there, and again, not to denigrate anybody, but there are people out there who use it as an attention seeking method of getting what they want. And that, it's wildly inappropriate, but also you can't judge somebody because they may actually be going through something. Somebody might say something like, yo, I'm going to do this to myself. And then bullshit. The next day you get that text,
and then they do it.
And then they do it. So you it's a walking on eggshell situation, but I think it's easier to talk about now because it's so wildly out there. It's open and stuff like that. But also on the other side of the fence to that, there are also resources to help mitigate those situations and stuff like that. Seek help. It doesn't make you weak, as Joey said. It makes you. He said it. I'll repeat it. If you have the balls to put yourself in that situation, to think that far, then you have the balls to seek out the resources necessary to take care of that situation. without taking drastic measures and putting people who love you and care about you into a terrible situation. So,
absolutely bloody right.
With that, Joey, I want to thank you for coming on and giving me this absolutely personal interview and stuff like that. I really appreciate it, man. I can't wait till the day I can look forward to saying, hey, I have a part 3 interview with Dr. Joe Medicine Woman. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah.
It'll take about 8 years to get there, man.
No, it might not. It might be, for all we know, it might be on the weekend that begins with October the 21st, huh?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Here we go.
The 22nd is my birthday. So,
oh God,
that would be a weekend. That would be a weekend of emotions now, wouldn't it?
Here we go. Oh God.
Here we go.
Well, I'm gonna leave the speculation to everybody else. Again, Joey, thank you so much, man. I was totally not expecting the conversation to go that way, but I'm really glad that we opened that door and we talked about it. I will send you a rough copy of this so you can re-listen, analyze, translate, and see how much of it you actually want to go out there for personal reasons and stuff.
Every single word of it. Put it all out there, mate.
I appreciate that.
Just do it.
I will.
I need to get on with your poster now, don't I?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that too later and stuff like that. Again, speculation. We'll leave it there. I appreciate you, Joey. To anybody who's listening to this post-production wise, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for tuning into the Just BCA podcast. Joey, it's been an absolute honor and privilege, and I look forward to a part 3 eventually down the road.
Let's hope so. I'd drink to that, but my can's empty.
I'll toast for you. Water, guys. Stay hydrated. Love you guys. Peace out.